Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Ariane and this is Ariane Art Time. Today we're going to take a look at how I made my newest intro animation for this channel. Yes, the one you just saw. For this tutorial you will need Photoshop, a lot of patience, many hours of your time, a hint of despair, and possibly whichever tablet you have to draw digitally. Let's get started. The first thing I do is I open a file and then I go to Window, then I click on Timeline and this will appear, and then I click on Create Video Timeline. This will allow me to move my frames around the time, and that way I can create motion with several drawings, right? So I start always with a draft of the movement that I want to make, because you can't just start animating something perfectly on the first go. So I start with a draft and I just try and imagine how the movement's gonna look like. I do the regular method of frame by frame, and as you can see with each frame that I'm drawing of the drafts, I'm making a new layer, and each frame is gonna go on a separate layer. For this animation I wanted to kind of give the look of a zoom and then a pan to the right, so that at the end I would just look back and my hair would be waving in the air. And that was the kind of movement I was trying to figure out in this several drawings. Now I always start small. I just try and make keyframes. A keyframe is basically a moment in time where the movement changes drastically from one drawing to the other. In this case, it's going from just looking at the back of my head to me sort of starting to turn around to look back to the camera. And as you can see, as the drawings progress, my head starts to become larger because I'm supposed to be making it zoom and pan to the right. And I'm just drawing, like I said, a very basic outline of the movement that I want to portray. Not trying to make anything too complex here, because that'll just make things very hard for me. Right now it's all about the keyframes and just making a new layer for each keyframe, and here we're just in the draft state of the drawing, so it is very simplified. Now finally I do the turnaround, which is going to be, you know, like almost the final pose in my drawing. And as you can see, I mean, I simplified 4 seconds of intro into just 4 very simple draft drawings, and then I just try and draw the final frame without the others in the way, just so that I can get a very better look at what I want to see at the end. And there I'm just drawing, you know, the face, nothing too complicated right there. Once I'm happy with my keyframes, I'll go to the next step, which is basically seeing how they're going to move around in time, just so that I can get a better look of how the movement is going to look, right? So I just finishing up the last touches for the keyframes, and in here what I do is I just make the drawings, as you can see in the part where I created my video timeline, I just make them smaller, and that just means that I'm making them last less time, and that I'm making them be visible in separate moments in time, so that they don't all appear at the same time, you know, like because they were all on the same position in the timeline there. So I just try and make them smaller, just so that I can get a look at the movement and also at how long I want my animation to last, right? So you'll see in a moment when I press play, the movement right there, I'm just trying to make the positions accurate, so that a lot of drawings don't appear at the same time. Okay, so I have an overall idea of what's gonna happen in the animation, right? In there, I just try and figure out if that's how long I want the frames to last, or if I want them to be longer. But I think in here, I'm just happy with the length that I chose for the videos. And now it's time to move on to the frames that go in between the keyframes. Okay, so in order for me to be able to draw the in-betweens, so the drawings in between the keyframes that'll give that smooth movement, I'll have to create a new layer in between those two keyframes. And I like to draw it in a different color too, because that just helps me like know for sure that I'm drawing the in-between and not drawing in the same layer as the keyframes that I made. So what I do is I add a new layer, then I try and position that layer in a position where it'll appear so that it'll appear where I can see both my first keyframe and my second keyframe. Now guys, I'm not a professional and I'm not a professor, obviously, so I'm a little bit bad at explaining, but I'm trying to walk you through my thought process so that you could possibly do the same things that I'm doing here. Okay, that's just what I'm trying to do. So as you can see there, I'm drawing an in-between, and I will be drawing at least 2 to 3 in-betweens between each keyframe so that I can get a smoother look, okay? Now this is just an in-between, like I said, so it's just a drawing that'll help me translate the movement from one keyframe to the other. And that's basically all I'm doing. Once I'm happy with that in between, I'll move my frames around again so that they don't appear at the same time in the timeline, so that they appear progressively, so that they look like an animation. And then I'll have to move everything around again, you know, the other top layers, because now they'll be one on top of the other. But that is something that I'll do once I finish drawing the second in between that I'll make between the second and the third keyframe. So there I'm just trying to make that smaller so that it'll, you know, last less amount of time. And I'm positioning it again on top of the fourth keyframe, the third keyframe, and below the second keyframe, so that they all appear at the same time, so that I can visually see them when I'm drawing the in-betweens. But after I'm happy with that in-between, I'll be moving them so that they don't appear at the same time in the timeline. Oh god, if that made any sense, I'll be so happy. But anyway, this is a very tedious process that takes a very long time. We're just in the draft phase, but it's worth it at the end. Like I said, you'll need a lot of hours and a lot of patience to just do this. You will have to have at least a basic concept of proportions and drawing, and this is something that I, you know, recommend. Also, if you want to practice your animation skills, I recommend doing something simpler, like the movement of a ball, you know, just something very, very simple, maybe not something as complicated as what I'm trying to do here, which honestly doesn't even look that professional, but you know, I'm still learning too, so I guess I'm just showing you what I'm learning. So yeah, I'm gonna speed the process of the in-betweens up, because it's basically just me doing this process of drawing a drawing in between keyframes over and over again until I'm happy with the movement. As you can see, I'm just testing the movement there, moving my cursor from one side to the other so I can see how it looks. And it's just a trial and error process too, because like I said, before you draw something, you can't really know how it's going to look, so you just have to do it that way. Okay, awesome. So now I'm somewhat happy with all of my in-betweens and my keyframes, and I've figured out the amount of time that'll have to pass between frames. So some frames will be, last longer, and some will last a short amount of time depending on the look or the effect I want to give my animation and certain parts of the movement. And I'll just be ready to start refining. This right here has all been a draft so far. It hasn't been anything final. I haven't even started inking or coloring, which is something that I will have to start doing very soon, because now I'm happy with everything, right? With the overall look of the draft. So we're just going to take one more look at the animation. And if we are happy with this one last look of the animation, then we shall begin the refining process. So let's see if we like it. Okay, we like it. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a folder for each frame. And inside of that folder, I will place the ink, the colors, and the draft as well, although the draft will be hidden so that we don't see those ugly lines that I made at the beginning, right? So I'll just place those two new layers, so the ink and the color. I'm not going to do any shading or highlights here. This is going to be a flat drawing because animation by itself, it's already pretty long process, so we don't want to complicate our lives too much. So like I said, in that folder is the ink layer, the color layer. What I have to do now is go into the section of the video timeline and just shorten the time that each layer lasts on the timeline, just so that they don't appear all throughout the video at the same time. And once I've cut them and I'm happy with the length that they both have, then I'll start going in and inking. So this is, again, you might have to have a little bit of a basic knowledge of how to do those things, in order to make the animation. Although if you guys just want to go full in and just start learning both things at the same time, I mean, you can do it, but it's going to be a little bit tough, of course. So right there you can see I'm just struggling with the lines just to make them pretty. I just make some curls here and there so that you can kind of guess that first initial frame is a head with hair, although it's kind of hard to tell from that one first frame. But anyway, and then I just add in to the color layer the color that I want for my hair. I'm gonna go here for a pastel color, even though my hair is not necessarily that color, it's just the color that I wanted to give. And basically with that, you'll have your first frame done. For this animation, I created 20 frames if I'm not mistaken, and I just do this same exact process for every single frame. So again, I'm gonna speed that up because I don't want to bore you with that. And finally, after doing that, I'm gonna show you how to export it, and with that you will be done, my friend. Awesome! So if you made it this far, kudos to you, because as you can see, this very simple 4-second animation took me 3 hours. Anyway, what we're going to be doing now is basically just render the video, right? That's the last thing we want to do. And here I'm just showing you that if you wanted to, you could add music to your video right inside of Photoshop, but I'm not gonna do that, so I'm just gonna skip through that. Yeah, so like you can see there the sound or the music, whatever it is that you added as the audio, but I didn't like it at the end, so I just erased it. And anyway, there I'm just watching the animation one more time just to make sure that everything's working as I want it to. And then what I do finally is I go to File, then I go to Export, then I go to Render Video. Alright, so this will appear, this box, and in here you can change the name, you can select the folder where you will want your video to be. In format, you can either use the H.20 something format, but for me, I want to use this animation without a background, so I use the format of QuickTime, and in Alpha Channel, I set pre-multiplied with black so that I would be able to use this for a video without any background. And then you just click render and it renders, and that's it. Basically, you have your video right there. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please support the content with a like, comment, or even better, subscribe. Make sure to hit that notification bell so you get notified with each new upload. See you on the next one.